Okay, I am so excited about this. We have 3 amazing speakers who are ready to take the stage momentarily. So, I know, right? They're great. This is going to be amazing. We need like 3 to 5 minutes here. Okay, Rob, when you start things off, I can remember. I do this. Okay, first up, so AIGA, national organization, there's chapters all over the US, all over the US. We do have a code of conduct, meaning just be cool, be kind. All right, Rosalind's the president, you can just go to her if you need anything. This space, look at this space. Dialexa has been super generous in donating the use of this space for the community. All of you here are part of the community, so we really appreciate that. And we invited some of their clients out here. They're doing some great work. One of their teams actually up first, so you'll hear from her momentarily. So thank you, Dialexa. So we do always like to do a little bit of a warm up, if you're okay with this. So today we're talking about Figma, which is really just a tool. And of course, as designers, tools really shouldn't matter. If you use a number 2 pencil, or if you use Illustrator, right? If you use a 35mm camera or a digital camera, tools shouldn't matter. It's about the creativity that we bring to it. But with that, we thought we'd do just a little bit of a get to know. Do you like these things? Get to know someone near you, maybe someone you don't know or don't know well. So I thought we get the warm-up could be, what do you spend the most of your time with, and what tool would you like to spend more time with? So as an example, you might spend a lot of time in Excel, which might not be where you want to spend your time. Luckily, actually, I do get to spend a lot of time in Figma. I do a lot of decks, proposals, RFP stuff, client stuff. So Figma slides is amazing, in it all the time. But where would I rather be? I'd rather be with my camera and lightroom. So that's actually what So I have something I'm in during the day, but then after hours there's some tool that I would rather be in. So let's take, what do we do here? 2 minutes, find someone maybe you don't know super well and ask them, what are you in most of the time? Or what would you rather be in? And go. Let's hear it. Let's hear the buzz. Go.
volunteers so wonderful already. So I'm gonna get out of y'all's way, but not before I kind of do a few housekeeping things that we like to go through in every AIGA event. So our shared purpose is creating a place where design thrives, and just like I said, if I look to this crowd, we are not struggling in that area. Thank you guys. We got that. Thank you guys so much for just bringing such great energy. We are volunteers led by passion to improve our local design community. So all the folks you see, the folks at the desk that check you in, the folks around, all of these folks are volunteers. So definitely shout out to them.
We do not get paid.
They definitely not get paid. So this is our board of directors. Myself, Rosalind, Linda Varghese is the silent genius that makes all of this run. Miss Prasanka, Anna, and Jenna, a wonderful executive board that we have this season. And then the actual people that do all of the things, the volunteer crew. Some of them are here, some of them are not, but they are all so amazing. And just shout out just right quick before we end to Jeremy and Sam who put this particular event together. This event sold out. Y'all are in for such a treat, and so just shout out to Jeremy and Sam for that. And then our wonderful advisory board, some awesome folks that guide us as we try to bring you guys great programming for the season. All right, and then we have a couple of shiny new events I want to tell y'all about. I'm super excited. So the first one is the Student Leadership Summit. So one of the things that AIG ADFW does is we work with students from UNT, all of the local colleges that have student chapters. And so those chapters need to have leadership guidance, and so we produce that as well. I know we got some UTD in here as well. Okay, UTA.
What else we got?
Where's Travis? UTD. All right. We definitely work a lot with students, and so this is a private event specifically for those chapters, but we wanted to just let you guys know about the other things we do in the community as well. And then the next event that we have is Get Unstuck. It's Career Advisory Conversation. So this event is for folks that are perhaps stuck in your career. Maybe you just want to kind of, what's that where people say, can I just buy you a coffee and just kind of shoot ideas at you or whatever. This event is for you. So we're going to have tons of mentors at different levels of their career to walk you through, like if you're stuck in a place, or if you just want to kind of run ideas by somebody, if you want to switch careers or get to the next level. This event is for you. It's a first come, first served basis where you will get to meet with I guess 3 professionals, and so it's kind of a speed dating style event. So you get to choose the professionals you meet with, you'll learn their bios. So it's definitely personalized for you, by you. So tickets are on sale now. Definitely check that out.
Where do you get tickets?
At dallas.aiga.org. You're the best. And also, we have the virtual AIGA National Design Conference coming up in October. That's a virtual event. And again, if you want to learn anything about these events, you can go to dallas.aiga.org to learn about these events and get tickets for other events. It looks like Alfred Hitchcock. All right, so thank you guys for bearing with me through those slides. Without further ado, I will turn it back over to Mr. Jeremy and Sam. Who am I giving to? I'm going to give it to Jeremy so he can introduce you guys to the fabulous folks that we have presenting today.
All right. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I think I have a couple slides in my presentation. Lee is here, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she's right here. So we have Lee, Justice, and Zab, who are going to go for about 20 to 30 minutes each with kind of a different take on learning a little bit more, going a little deeper on Figma. And then at the end, we're going to have them sit right here. They're going to answer questions until we get kicked out of here. That's yes, that is it. Are you ready to get going?
Yes.
All right.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, because I sometimes can be like a screeching pterodactyl, so just please give me some sort of signal if it's too much. Okay, okay, and I'll just go into, okay. your stakeholders. In case you didn't know, my name is Lee, and I'm a product design manager here at Dialexa, which is a consulting company. So that means that most, if not all, of our work is protected under an NDA. But in the first half of my presentation, I'm going to walk through an entirely fake solar energy company and how a founding designer might utilize Figma slides to pitch a new feature idea. In the second half, I'm going to focus on the primary Figma tool and show you a few examples of how you can create presentations that are equally as engaging, but they will not be work related. The reason being that I firmly believe that while it's great that design is a means of earning a living, I think it should still continue being a playful avenue for fun and experimentation. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now, and if you have your laptop, please feel free to follow along, but if you just want to watch my demonstration, just know that I am recording this session for your reference, as indicated by my very tall tripod camera set back there. Thank you, Jonathan.
All right,
But with that said, let's go ahead and jump into Figma slides. So the use case that I had brought up was I'm a designer at a solar energy company, and I want to pitch a feature idea. So what we're going to do is within the primary Figma tool, we'll go ahead and press plus up here, and you'll see that new slide deck is the third option. Hopefully it stays there. I can't promise it's always going to live there with all the changes that Figma is making these days. But what I appreciate is that immediately I'm served this repository of templates, and what I really appreciate, similar to Keynote and PowerPoint, is that it gives me a pre-existing template, but what I find more valuable is the fact that it's more, rather than being based off of purely aesthetic, it also gears toward use cases, which again, I personally find more valuable. So because I prepared for this presentation, I know what template I'm going to use, so I'm just going to go ahead and click Use Template for Startup Pitch. Now, perusing these slides, it generally offers exactly what I'm looking for, so I'm going to go ahead and add all of the slides to my file. The first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that the color scheme matches my brand. And so where I would go to update that is in this sidebar right here. And what I appreciate about this detail, it's a small one, but it matters to me, is the fact that it feels more intuitive because it closely resembles the color picking experience that I'm used to in Figma, in Photoshop, in Adobe Illustrator. Again, small detail, but I think it's a nice touch. Now, when I go into pop in my brand color, you can see that right off the bat in the sidebar, all of these elements are updated alongside the changes that I made here. And so that is a really nice touch. And once I'm done updating my color palette, I think this is a really cool functionality. But if you hover over this thumbnail, you'll see a shuffle icon, and it takes the colors that you set, and it can quickly remix your slide based off of your brand. Now, sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, but I think it's helpful for when you run into maybe a creative hurdle, and it just offers another direction that you can explore, and maybe some inspiration. Okay, now going through my sidebar, I'm looking at these 21 slides, and it feels a little overwhelming. Originally, I walked you all through my use case, and I know I don't need all of these slides, so I'm just going to go ahead and start trimming the fat down. Earlier, as you saw, it was more geared towards pitching a startup, and I already worked at a startup in this scenario, so all I really need are the slides crucial for my feature pitch. In these last two sections, you can see that they're interactive slides, and so while I want to maintain this Let's Align interactive widget at the end of my presentation, what I'm actually going to do with this check-in slide is move it to the front and repurpose it. Something that I really like to do with my audience and with my stakeholders is to gauge their level of knowledge around what it is that we're about to discuss. So like I mentioned earlier, this is a new feature, right? And so I might want to know, hey, how much do you know about this so that I can meet you where you are? If you only have so much time with your stakeholders, especially if everyone's strapped for time, calendars are crazy. You know you want to make the most use out of your time together. So I'm going to actually ask this interactive stamp widget and incorporate a poll where I'm going to add options options that help me gauge, okay, how much do they know about this, just so I can tailor the conversation to them. Because I'm pretty happy with the skeleton of this deck, and because I'm going to give this talk, I did already prepare this already complete deck to spare you all from sitting here and watching me type, because I think that might be a waste of time for you. But like I mentioned earlier, I feel like this is the professional equivalent of, hey, stop me if I've told you this story before, right? And so I can see that my stakeholders have heard whispers of it in the hallway. You can see that I have some pretty cheeky statements here that are written in my tone of voice. My teammates know that I'm a very casual and a playful designer, so any opportunity that I have to inject delight or fun into an otherwise mundane meeting, I'm gonna take it. So, another nifty tip that I'd like to offer to make your presentation feel a little more personalized to your audience, you can see some of these hyperlinks here as well as these 3 sections. And so what you can do is map your different goal options to these different portions of the deck so that you can immediately just know, like, okay, I know no one's hearing about this for the first time, so I don't have to walk through every single slide. I think you can avoid a lot of maybe redundant conversations this way, and you can offer your audience almost like a choose your own adventure, right? So you can either link it here or in your table of contents. But you can see that if I click start here, it immediately jumps into this slide. And just because you have these 3 sections doesn't mean that you have to include all of the same slides within each section, right? You might start off, for the people who know the least, you might start off by including all the information in the world and serve it to them on a platter. But for those who know literally every single detail, it might be a waste of time to go through everything. So I know that this is not the first time a lot of my stakeholders have heard about this, and so I know I don't need to start from ground zero, but that also doesn't mean that they know every single metric or customer testimonial that I'm prepared to share. And so with this squared away and us laying the groundwork for my feature pitch, now we can move into the nitty-gritty slides that you all might be more familiar with. So that might be the mission or the purpose. That might be quantitative data in the form of charts and graphs, qualitative data in the form of customer testimonials. In my presentations, I really look to blend the two to provide a more holistic picture. And then, of course, maybe a timeline where you can showcase progress or journey. Now, a big disclaimer, math was not my strongest subject in school, and these numbers are entirely made up, so please don't pay too much attention to that. But I'm more or less happy with how I've laid out things now. How I generally like to structure my presentations is by presenting this large vision or my proposal followed by all of these supporting details. The reason being that in the past, when I reversed the order and I started with the details, I found that my audience members spent a good chunk of time wondering exactly what it was I was building up to. This way, I've communicated my vision ahead of time, and I'm almost priming my stakeholders to take the following pieces of evidence and map it to, again, the vision I've communicated. And so I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. But if I wanted to continue experimenting, a really nifty view is if you go to this button over here with the forward table, view, you can see that it takes you to a bird's eye view of your deck, which I'm sure most of you are more familiar with than the slide deck that you get in PowerPoint keynote. This has been a really, really nice touch. The reason being that I remember in the past, I've jumped into discussions with my teammates about the order of things, right? Should we start off with the research? Should we start with the executive summary slide? Should we kick off with the proposed design? And I remember spending so much time moving slides back and forth. And so this nice little interaction is if you hover to the left of your slides, you can easily shift sections up or down, and obviously the prototype updates along with your order. And I just find that this gives you the opportunity to experiment with your narrative without it feeling so tedious. But again, this is probably the view that I would live in the most because this is how I always think now. Now, going back to the sidebar, we can go into the next detail that had me pretty mesmerized when Figma Slides launched at Config earlier this year. And that is the ability to incorporate your actual prototypes into your slide deck. Now, the reason I love this is because it brings every single thing into one place. As it stands today, I find that when I'm alternating between a slide deck and a prototype, that has the ability to pull my audience members or my stakeholders out of the focused state that they're in, right? We have been locked in on this topic, and now they're distracted by my browser bookmarks, my other Figma tabs, which I would have closed if it wasn't for the second part of my presentation. But I just love that I'm able to also include metrics here. If I go into this prototype view here, you can see I have all of this space in the left and right, but not really an opportunity to include additional details or bullet notes that I might want my stakeholders to be mindful of when we're thinking through whether or not we want to pursue this feature, right? So in this case, the dynamic suggestions that we serve to customers are dependent on the availability of their smart home devices. If I was just walking through my prototype here, that might be a detail that I forget. So again, you have your presenter notes here, but you could also utilize this space as your presenter notes. Now, in continuing to communicate my vision, something that I might do with the next slide is, you saw that this was a low fidelity prototype. Something that I might do with the next slide is showcase what other organizations are doing in other industries that might resemble what we're trying to achieve. Another tactic that I could use is using the space here to showcase how competitors in our same industry and compare what they're doing and how we might differentiate ourselves and level the playing field. So that's more or less the structure that I take, and obviously everything that I'm sharing today is just a loose suggestion. If you find that shifting the order around works best for you, then please by all means go that route instead, but this is just one way I would use Figma Slides to communicate a vision. Now, to cap off my 30-minute presentation, you all saw that I had this interactive portion at the beginning, and now going to the end, I had maintained that aligned scale from the pre-existing template. The reason I like to end with this is because I think it gives us the opportunity to address any questions or comments or concerns from stakeholders. And we're already in the mental headspace of talking about it, so I think this is a great opportunity to squash any misunderstandings and making sure that we're all walking away from this meeting on the same page. Now, to be clear, I don't want this to come off as me trying to rob my audience of the opportunity to think through what I just presented, or to communicate their thoughts or decisions to me at a later time. Again, I just want to make sure that when we walk away from this meeting, we are on the same page as best as we can be. But before I move into the second portion, I also want to quickly talk about how, like Jeremy said, it's not about the tools, right? It's about the principles. And so a lot of the principles that I just outlined, the tactics you can do in the primary Figma tool, with the hyperlinks, with the way you structure everything. And something that I want to be mindful of is once 2025 rolls around and Figma starts charging for slides, for AI, not every organization is going to have the willingness or the resources to pay into these luxuries and these capabilities. And so how do we remain tool agnostic, even if they're coming from the same family of tools or organization, right? Again, it's all about the principles and the process, and not so much, oh, this is where auto layout used to live, or this is where the color palette used to live, and now it's gone, right? Now, if I did all of this in a regular Figma deck, and I didn't have all of these interactive elements, how might I continue to foster engagement for my stakeholders in a normal deck? Well, I can encourage everyone to go camera on, that's for sure. I love when someone is explaining a concept to me and I look visibly confused, and without my having to prompt them, without me having to interrupt them, they just automatically start expanding on the very concept that had me so confused to begin with, that caused me to furrow my brows, right? I think being able to read body language is such a gift, and that is already reason number one why we should try to be camera on in meetings. But let's say outspoken, introverted person who maybe didn't have the chance to interject earlier, right? Because again, their opinion is just as valuable as mine and the next person. Okay, so again, these are just some principles that you might carry across tools. Something that, again, these are luxuries. You don't have to be tool dependent. I know that the conversation that I've had with my head of product design here at Dialexa is tools have changed drastically from where his career started versus now, right? And even with Figma alone, it's always about the next new thing. And so these are just some tips on how you might use Figma slides to communicate an idea and gauge by it. Now, in the second half of my presentation, like I said, it's not going to be work related, and it's going to be more so showcasing the primary Figma tool and how you might still create really engaging presentations with that. Okay, so with the time that I have, I'm just going to frame it as like problem, solution. But first, show of hands, how many of y'all have heard of PowerPoint nights on TikTok? Okay, less than I thought, which is surprising. But it's a trend that started in 2022, and I was seeing all of these individuals use tools like PowerPoint and Keynote to create the most entertaining presentations about the wildest topics. And it started, it had me thinking, why can't I do the same? So, problem. I am a photographer who has just returned from vacation. This is a very real problem, by the way. I experienced it last month. I've just returned from vacation, and I have taken thousands of photos. I have experienced tens of dozens of activities, and I've collected all these stories, and I also have an endless number of people asking me how my trip was. Generally, I'll round up a batch of photos, and I kind of just start talking through my itinerary, right? Here's what I did, here's what I saw, here's what I ate. My most exciting and favorite topic. But that's not the most engaging experience in the world, right? Being talked at. And so I also know that folks do not have the time or the patience to look at the 3,000 photos that I've captured in a single week, because that is also another real number. And so, solution. A day after coming back from my Alaskan cruise last month, I challenged myself to put together this presentation, and I collected my top 5 photos from each city. I collected my highlights from the daily journal that I kept, and I just put together this presentation with 3 interactive elements. And I'm sure Zach is going to touch on all of the prototyping capabilities that you can do in Figma. But I did all this so that I could create a more engaging experience for my loved ones who I was willing to share these stories with. So again, you have the interactive photo carousel. You have this interactive map where you can hop around. And you also have this navigation bar on the bottom in case you wanted to experience my trip with me, my little cruise with me in chronological order. I cannot tell you how much fun putting together this presentation was. I remember a day after coming back, I picked one photo that I felt encapsulated the personality of every single city, and I uploaded it to Adobe Color, and that's how I gathered all of these different color palettes that I felt like added a level of personalization to each city's respective slide. So what my wife and I ended up doing, we put together this presentation, and we went over to my best friend's house, and where we typically just talk about our trip, we were able to project this on his television screen, much like you're seeing now, and I felt like we were able to invite them into this immersive little one-week cruise with us, right? And rather than just talking about it, we were really able to spend a good amount of time like helping them visualize exactly what it was we were seeing and hearing and doing, especially outside of these tiny little phone screens, right? The best part, I think this is pretty cool. My best friend is a prosecutor for the city of Dallas, and after the presentation, he asked me, Lee, can anyone use this tool? And I said, well, yes, to an extent. You have a certain number of files for free. Why do you ask? And he said, well, I could see myself using this for my murder trials. Talk about a design me thinking, what if I put together a Figma presentation that showcased how a murder played out from one place to another? I would say, his jury is already so impressed anytime he does literally anything in PowerPoint that I can't imagine how floored they would be if he whipped out a Figma prototype as a piece of evidence for his trial, for his argument. But long story short, I think I'm going to teach my best friend pretty soon how to use Figma, and hopefully I can help justice get served. Do my part as a citizen, But I would love to take the last few minutes that I have to walk you through another fun use case that you can do with the primary Figma tool. And, speaking of getting served, if you couldn't tell, I'm a pretty enthusiastic individual, okay? I often get teased lovingly by my teammates on Wednesday because I pop in a stand-up and I'm like, hey, good morning everybody, happy Monday team. But I really do start and end my day like this. My wife, on the other hand, does not. Problem. I'll let Lexi know. Okay, so problem. Every single morning, I spring out of bed and I start moving around like a Tasmanian devil. I go to make an iced latte for my wife, and then when I come back, we start our day with me asking the same question: what would you like for breakfast? And then I start rattling off all of these options to her without realizing that it was actually cognitive overload because, unlike me, she needed a little more time to wake up in the morning, and I just was not comprehending that. It also doesn't help that I listed like 7 breakfast options right off the bat. And so she was just like, this is too much, I don't know what I want to eat. And so, solution. I decided to pretend I was a waiter and I crafted an interactive menu. For my wife so that she would have a little reference every single morning. So this is something that I do have to manually update. I try to find a dynamic component on it in the Figma file and I couldn't. So this is something that's still, typing in. But for everything else, I made these cards, I made them with auto layout. They're dependent on the ingredients that we have at home. But it's categorized from savory to sweet and savory to sweet. So yeah, you can see that it's very easy to use, by the way. For example, if I didn't have any bananas, well, 1, she could have regular pancakes. Or 2, I would just pull this card, off the menu. But this was a really fun experience because, as someone who's also a visual learner and as someone who's a designer, I can appreciate a visual reference. And so this has just been very helpful in not overloading her in the morning while she's still waking up. And so I kind of just bring out the iPad, leave it in the room with her little iced latte, and then I go back in like 10 to 15 minutes and I'm like, hey, what do you want to eat? And then we have breakfast together. So yeah, this has also made the process. I've always thought about pursuing a career in cooking, and I felt like this was a nice little taste where I could come up with my own little recipes and pretend like I had a menu at a restaurant. But this doesn't just serve her. So we've actually had a good number of friends stay at our house, and it's funny because the next day when I whip this bad boy out in the morning, the look of delight on their faces makes me so happy like you wouldn't believe. One of my friends, Grace, her reaction was hilarious. She was like, a breakfast menu? Really? The Marriott? I always knew that I loved designing experiences, but I think this was truly like the physical and digital testimony to that. So that realization really sinking in. So my next enhancement actually on the roadmap for this menu is incorporating a photo that slides up anytime you interact with a card so that my guests can have a better visual reference for exactly what they'll be receiving on a platter. My coworkers know this, but I take a lot of photos of my food, and so I'm like, well, I might as well find a way to use them. But let me just go back to see this slide. But you can see that I use Figma for a lot more than just my client work. While I do appreciate that it's given me the opportunity to engage with my stakeholders digitally and introduce stuff like fun into our workshops and presentations. I also love the physical solutions that it's been able to offer me, as well as my loved ones, in our personal life. Hopefully, you took away something that was helpful from this presentation, whether it was a new tool or tactic that you wanted to employ in your presentations, or a newfound excitement for design, or maybe an unconventional way to use Figma. I hope you're walking away having learned something. Well, those are my tips.
Exactly.